right, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for joining. So today we're going to be discussing how Boston Medical Center designs workforce strategies for nurses. My name is Iman Abuzaid. I'm an MD by background. I've been in technology for the last 10 years of my career, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Incredible Health, which is the fastest growing career marketplace for healthcare workers in the US today. Incredible Health is the only platform that allows hospitals to hire permanent experienced nurses in 20 days or less. We flip the script so where hospitals and health systems apply to nurses instead of waiting for nurses to apply to them. So joining us today is Nancy Gaden. She's the SVP and CNO at Boston Medical Center. BMC is a 514-bed academic medical center, which is the largest and busiest provider of trauma and emergency services in New England. BMC is also the largest safety net hospital in New England, and it's a Magnet designated hospital. It's also named as one of the top places to work in New England by the Boston Globe. In 2020, Nancy was named to Becker's 50 Hospital and Health System CNOs to Know, and she was also the 2018 recipient of the American Nurses Association Massachusetts President's Award, and she received the 2019 Excellence in Leadership Award from the New England Organization of Nurse Leaders. In September 2020, Nancy was among 10 women honored by the Commonwealth Institute as a recipient of their 2020 Extraordinary Woman Advancing Healthcare Award for being a remarkable leader shaping healthcare in Massachusetts. In 2020, she was also honored to receive a Daisy Lifetime Achievement Award. Very impressive, Nancy. Thank you so much for joining us. We're honored to have you today.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
All right. So for everybody on the call, this is designed to be an interactive discussion. So please do feel free to submit questions in the chat, and we'll address as many as we can. We've definitely set aside time for Q&A at the end as well. And so today we're going to be covering the state of the labor market, the nurse labor markets in the US today. What are some of Nancy's top workforce strategies? We're going to be covering topics such as new graduate hiring, experienced nurse hiring, and nurse retention, and then covering how Incredible Health can help. And then we'll also have time for Q&A too. This session is recorded, and so for all of you that attended and registered, a member of the Incredible Health team will be in touch afterwards to share the recording too. All right, so let's just do a quick market overview, just set the scene, just so we're all on the same page about what's going on in the nurse market. First is that healthcare, our demand for healthcare as a country continues to increase. Our population is aging, so the demand on the healthcare system keeps going up, but we do not have enough healthcare workers to keep up with that demand, including nursing. Healthcare is the #1 employment sector in the US by number of workers, but it's also the sector that has the biggest labor shortages. Nationally, this problem is getting more and more challenging. We are on track to be 1.1 million nurses short by the end of next year. The acute care nurse turnover, the national average right now is almost 19%. It has gone up over 2% over the last couple of years. So we're seeing unprecedented amounts in turnover. We're also seeing labor costs go up. So labor as a percentage of revenue right now is about 48% for publicly traded hospitals. And we're seeing wage inflation or wage increases happening, not just from temporary nurses, but also the permanent nurses are also seeing increases in wages because of the shortages. And then the average time to hire a permanent and specialized nurse right now in the US on average is 89 days, which is a long time. The other thing I just want to share is just the top reasons why nurses are leaving jobs. About 12% of US nurses are signed up on the Incredible Health platform. And so we ask them, why are you looking for a new job? Like what's going on? And so by far the #1 reason is they're looking to advance their careers. And that could be a wide range of things. It could mean cross-training. It could mean wanting to specialize more and grow their skills in their current specialty. It could mean a desire to move into leadership. It could honestly be a whole range of tactics, but something related to advancing their careers. The second most common is that they're looking for a more flexible schedule. So we're seeing more and more of that, wanting part-time roles, full-time, not just full-time roles, weekend shift options, different hours preferences, and so on. So they are looking for different and more flexible schedules. The third most common is there's something to do with geography. They're either relocating to a different location altogether, or they're trying to reduce their commute time. And the least selected reason is they're looking for more pay. Really, we work with a lot of nursing and HR leaders across the country. There is a lot of focus and emphasis that those leaders have on pay and compensation. However, we are finding that the leaders that are targeting these other areas like career advancement and as well as providing more flexible schedules are able to hire more and retain more as well. All right, so let's turn over to Nancy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
All right, so we know Boston is a very competitive market for nurses, just like many of the other urban areas in the U.S. Can you briefly share with us how's BMC overall dealing with the nursing crisis and challenges right now?
Thanks again for having me here. I'm really excited. I wish I could see the people that are out there. It helps me when I'm watching other people. But when you said you were going to set the scene for the labor market, I thought, oh, geez, I should find my Tylenol and pre-medicate for that conversation. It is just unbelievable here in Boston, and I'm sure we know that nationally this is a big story everywhere. We have in Boston and Massachusetts, and I suspect it's similar in other places, a combination of two, like the confluence of two things. We have a lot of volume. There is just an awful lot of patient demand. So we have this, incessant need to increase the number of staff we have just to take care of the patients we have. We have taken, we are very committed to the right staffing plan. And so in order to keep up with the demand, we've had to use a lot of travelers, which is extremely expensive. It's a new storyline for us financially at BMC. And we, the volume thing is also like exacerbated by the fact that in Massachusetts, there's 1,000 patients daily stuck in hospitals that can't go to post-acute. And that is largely because the post-acute hospitals and SNFs and rehab hospitals, it's really diseconomic for them to hire travelers. And so many of them are collapsing and decreasing their beds in order to, be able to staff what they have to staff. And so for us, that means more patients stuck in our beds. So we've had, people retire early. In the last couple of years, we've had like higher than usual people retiring, and orientation takes longer. And it takes longer to hire people, as you mentioned, and we have a lot of FMLAs. So I think we've seen an uptick in terms of people needing time for their families and for themselves. And so the combination of all that, just makes us really need a lot of nurses.
Got it. Thank you for providing that overview. So I believe we're seeing, of course, very similar challenges across the country. Let's talk about the strategies for addressing some of these problems. You sort of have this three-pronged approach, or three areas that you really focus in on. Would you mind just sharing what those three areas are, and then we'll go deep on each one too?
Yeah, I think we definitely are focused on taking recruiting and splitting it in two. Recruiting new grads is one of our big focuses. Recruiting experienced nurse is another focus, and the huge one, which will impact actually everything the most, is retention of our current nursing.
Got it.
Colleagues.
Okay, so a lot's changed over the last couple of years in particular when it comes to hiring nurses. Would you mind just sharing, just at a high level, what are some key things that have changed over the last couple of years that your team is considering?
Yeah, I think, well, for one thing, I'll just speak for us in Boston. We used to be the only hospital that hired new graduates into specialty areas. Critical care, of the downtown hospitals, critical care, labor and delivery, NICU. Now hospitals are really needing nurses so badly. They're like looking more broadly at the kinds of things that they would consider putting new graduates into. So we kind of have a new competitiveness around new grads for those areas. And the second thing is, as a downtown teaching hospital, as an academic medical center, we used to attract more nurses who in community hospitals who had gotten their, sort of their basic competencies, worked there 3 to 5 years, and were ready for something new and said, oh, I think I might consider going to one of the teaching hospitals. And I think those people are now traveling. I feel like when somebody is in that sort of 2 to 5 year state, they're the kind of, they maybe don't have roots yet. They don't have a house or children, and maybe their even spouse works from home. They just have a lot more flexibility. And that sort of demographic of nurse used to seek jobs downtown, and now I think they're starting to travel. And then for us too, we are starting to, we are definitely seeing a lot of our nurses in that 2 to 5 year, 2 to 7 year demographic choosing to travel, even if it's traveling like down the street. Some people are traveling locally, but that is really different for us. So the hiring is really, it's definitely shifted.
Okay, got it. Will you mind just giving us, even at a high level, just a breakdown of just the ratios of new graduates versus travelers versus experienced nurses that you're seeing more recently?
Yeah. So we have about 2,000 RNs at BMC, and I have between 150 and 180 travelers here. We have about a little bit over 100 people in orientation right now and a little bit over 100 people in an LOA. So without even our openings, those travelers are basically can just cover people in orientation and an LOA. So it's kind of stunning, actually. That's like sort of how it goes. So basically say a little bit less than 10% travelers. And that compares to right before the COVID epidemic, like on say February 1st of 2020, I had 30 travelers. And that's kind of an interesting phenomenon, right? Because travelers used to be sort of a safety net for LOAs and for short-term needs, like a hard to fill position. And now for the first time, we're using travelers just for our basic, staffing plan. And so it's a new day. Got it.
Okay. So let's dive into the new graduates, new graduate nurses. So how many are you hiring every year?
So we used to hire between say 80 and 90 or 70 and 90 a year, and now we're on a pace to hire more like 120 to 150 this year.
Okay, got it. And then are you working with local nursing schools to hire them?
Yeah, so we have, and this is probably typical for most of the people on the call, we have a lot of nursing students who are already here, and they're rotating through with their faculty member. And so I think we have about 120 nursing students a year that come through in small groups to BMC, and some bachelor's nurses in their final semester. So we do have a lot of students here. So one of the things we're really trying to think about is leveraging the students we already have. Making sure that while they're here, we connect with them, we give them opportunities to maybe come to CEU programs. We try to, they're here, they're like, we want to talk them into considering Boston Medical Center when they graduate. So that's one piece. I just added a position actually to be a specific nursing school liaison. I suspect some hospitals might have that. We didn't. And it probably takes its own set of focus and intentionality, I think, to make sure that you're really, reaching out to the nursing schools. We're going to talk about this later, I think, in some other questions, but we definitely social media is a way to link with those nursing students. And some of our nurses are going out to schools to do lectures. We're volunteering to have them go speak with student groups and be a guest speaker, so to speak, in one of their classes. So I think as much as you can get visibility of your hospital, and really for us, we have a really important value proposition at BMC. We have an amazing mission. A lot of nurses, younger nurses, nursing students are really committed to helping underserved patients, and we really have that here. So I think it's a matter of like getting what's different about BMC out there.
And then would you mind just sharing like some of the best practices that you've seen in terms of hiring new graduate nurses?
Well, one of the things that we're, making sure we're thinking a lot about is supporting them once they get here. And so I think in terms of the hiring, making it simple for them, making as much as you can, connecting with them over the, electronically and sort of having a process that is easy for them to apply. That's a key. Organizing your new grad residency programs so that when a nursing student looks and at your hospital, like say on your webpage or, you're up at your jobs, they can tell where you're going to offer programs, when they're going to be offered. So like if they know they're going to pass their boards in say January, they know you have an ED program in March and a critical care program in April, you need to, and maybe a monthly med-surg program. So as much as you can organize their choices, I think that helps. And then once they get here, we've found, and I'm sure this is common across everybody on this call, the nurses, the new grads who were in school during COVID had a very decreased amount of clinical time opportunities. And so they struggle a lot in their new role. And so we've added a lot of resources on the off shift, especially for them once, we've elongated their orientations, definitely. And also now we have much more support for them to be able to reach out. We call them generalists, education generalists. They're expert nurses that we've hired into these roles. So I know that's a getting to be a more common method for making sure people have the support. But I think one of the issues we have with attrition of the newest nurses is that they are not solid and they do not feel comfortable, and that we can do better, as nursing leaders. We can make sure that people, they went through school, they passed their NCLEX exam. We need to be really committed to making them successful and as a staff nurse.
Got it. Okay. And then for the hiring, so you hire new graduates with associate's degrees and bachelor's degrees, but we also know you're magnet designated, right? So how do you first of all, why are you hiring associate's degree nurses? Because we speak with CNOs who just don't allow that at all. and then how are you balancing that with the magnet designation?
Yeah, I'm really proud of the fact that we hire associate's degree nurses. There are many programs in Massachusetts, and nurses that come from associate's degree programs, they commonly have, this is a second program for them, or they have a job, or they're balancing their family. They have a lot of real life experiences that honestly make them phenomenal nurses, truthfully. Yeah. And I also think that, there's a real unintended consequence in only hiring bachelor's prepared nurses. You will get less diversity, both economically and with race. If you mean it, and you really want to increase diversity at your organization, you have to consider hiring associate's degree nurses. What we do is when we hire them, we make them agree that they'll get their bachelor's within 4 years. And now, when I was young, can't see all the wrinkles in my eyes, but trust me, I've been in nursing a long time. It used to be very hard to go back and get your bachelor's. We did not make it easy, but now it's very accessible. People can do completely online programs, and we give them tuition reimbursement, the regular tuition reimbursement that the organization gives, and we support them going back to school. And so we have 80% of our nurses are bachelor's prepared. That's the way it's been. I'm not worried about it. It's just a timing thing. You hired them as an associate's degree, then they get their bachelor's. So
okay, I'm going to take a few questions about your new graduate program from the audience here. So Anna Peltak asked, have you had to increase your nursing professional development FTEs to support the larger cohorts of new grads?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, both the regular educators, which for us here are master's prepared nurses who develop curriculum and all that, and this generalist position that we have called it, which is supporting people more once they're off orientation. Yeah, it's a new, we really have to invest, I think, as hospitals in what will it take for us to bring in the number of nurses that we need to bring in, and then support them once they get through their orientation.
Yep. Another question from Robin Cody. Do your new grads, the ones that are hired into specialty areas, do they have to commit to stay for a specific period of time?
Tell me, who is that? I want to know how I can make them commit.
Well, I don't think they might not know that was just a question. Oh, are you making them commit?
We've talked about that. We definitely talk about how much we're investing in them, and that we believe that they need to give back to the organization. We don't have them sign anything. We don't have anything formal. Maybe we should actually, we've thought about it and just haven't done it. But I would love to believe that, spiritually people would believe that they kind of owed us and they'd stick around, but I'm not going to count on it because it's a new world.
Got it. And then did you have to extend, you mentioned some of the challenges around, just the high turnover of the new graduates, and then as well as during COVID, they got less clinical experience. Did you have to make any changes like extending your new graduate orientation or onboarding? We did. And, we've always called it competency-based, but we always had in our mind that it was 12 weeks, 3 months. We actually plan it now for 4 months. And so that's a big change. And we really believe, and I think there's more we can do on this too. And I think everybody on the call, people might be trying different things. We've been thinking about, doing a little bit more classroom and then pushing them back into the classroom. A couple of our educators have had the idea, and I think we're going to pilot it where the new grads are, we do a faculty model, I should say that. And I really believe in this, like a DEU, a dedicated education unit, where all the new grads go together and they're with one educator and a little gaggle of new grads, like they were in school almost.
And the educator gets them through doing a nursing assessment, paging people, some of the basics. So it frees the preceptors. They don't have to do all of that work. Then after, it's usually 2 to 3 weeks on that dedicated education unit. Then they go off to be, this is for MedSurg, then they go off to be in their floor with their preceptor. And I really think that makes a very good, consistent beginning, because, the preceptors they're tired, they have different assignments every day. It's very hard to make a consistent beginning for the new grad. So DEUs are the way to do it, I think. And they've worked out really, really, really well for us.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, let's move on to the topic of experienced nurse hiring. You mind just describing the overall situation of hiring experienced nurses at BMC today?
Yeah, we're having trouble.
Yeah, like everybody else, it's okay.
Like everybody else, we have good analytics, which is very helpful. And I was going to talk about that, a little bit, just to encourage people to really have as much as you can, as much information as you can about that whole, how many people are applying from there, how many people are you being able to interview, how many people are accepting the roles, because understanding who is coming as experienced nurses helps you see, or who's not coming, helps you see the problems that you might have, either in compensation in certain parts of the range, or just what people are looking for that you're not able to offer. I agreed with your first slide on, people need flexibility, and we as a profession, we need to figure out, we need a new day here, honestly. If we want to attract experienced nurses to come to our hospitals, we have to think differently about the things that are important to them. And I would say we're like beginning that journey, but you really, you have to have a way to really support the thriving of the culture of your nurses. And they have to have time with their patients, and they have to have meaningful interactions that make them want to stay at the bedside. And you have to deal with employee safety and, workplace safety, because that's something that's going to kill whatever else you want to do. If people don't feel like you're really focused on that, that's like a really big problem. So I think, nurse wellness you have to have that as part of what you're considering when you're investing, and what you're putting out there in terms of what you're going to give your experienced nurses, because by definition, they're leaving somewhere, they're experienced. So they've been somewhere, they know what they're looking for. And if you really want to attract them and keep them, I think we're all going to have to just make a big adjustment in how we think about hospital nursing.
Got it. Okay. So are there specific sort of programs or tactics you've put in place to hire more experienced nurses?
Yeah. So one of the things we did is we started a recruitment and retention council, nursing council. So this is a kind of a magnet thing, but we have these councils where nurses from all over the hospital come together with a topic. So we have a nursing informatics council, we have an integrative therapy council, we have a R&R council, recruitment and retention. And so they have done a lot of work. We have a much better career page than we used to have. So you can really see who we are and get the flavor of, videos by other nurses talking about working here. Social media, our nurses, the staff that are in the R&R council, I think are, definitely interested in being part of the social media for the hospital in terms of recruiting. You have to send people to conferences, you have to give them opportunities. Here we have fellowship programs. We have SUD, substance use disorder fellows. They spend 1 day a week for 6 months in other kinds of externally in the community programs for SUD to learn to see people get better and see people in recovery, and then be able to bring back their expertise to the hospital. We have an integrative nurses council, and we have integrative nursing fellows who do therapy, aromatherapy, Reiki, meditation, both with patients and with staff. It's really, really very valuable. So really hearing from people what they want an opportunity to participate in. We have an employee referral program. It's a lot of money. It's $7,500. We give an employee at BMC if they refer an experienced nurse. So I like paying our own people. So I like the referral program. Being a magnet hospital, honestly, we just did this little mini survey of the last 30 nurses that we hired who were experienced. Why did they come to BMC? And the number one thing was our mission and being a magnet organization. And so I think, you really it's who you are and how you will have them be their highest self, their best nurse. That is really what's going to attract people. So for us, it's like making sure we get that stuff out there, and honestly continuing to reinvent ourselves. Like this morning, I was at the beginning of the substance use disorder all-day conference. We have 200 nurses there. And I was thinking about it on my way here, like that's 10% of my nurses that are there today.
Yeah.
And learning about, how to give excellent care to a complicated group of patients and who we want to be their best nursing. They want the academic support, the best practices and evidence-based practice for caring for people with SUD. So, but that kind of thing where people get to be away from the hospital, really learn things that they care about. We got to do a lot more of that.
Okay. One question that's come through related to hiring is, are you having challenges with getting preceptors, right? And has that impacted your ability to hire? That's
the reason we did the DEU, because we got a lot of feedback from preceptors that said this is exhausting, and I'm tired of teaching, from the very beginning all the way to the end. I will share with you too, you said in the beginning of my little intro there that I'm in an organization of nurse leaders. Another nurse leader in there told us at a meeting about something they're doing at their hospital where they've sort of divided the orientation. They let the very new nurses, maybe they've only been a nurse on that floor 6 to 12 months, they let them take those new grads for a little while and do the very basic stuff with them. And then the new grad moves to sort of the next group to do sort of the next competencies. And then they only give them to the most experienced preceptors when they're doing the very most complicated pieces of the job, which I thought was such a neat idea because you do have preceptor burnout with your very experienced nurses. I think the way, the way to deal with that is to try to take off of their plate some of the work that they do with new grads. The other one is to definitely support them. The education partner is really important because preceptors end up with all kinds of different personalities that they're working with, and it's challenging. So a good preceptor course where people can talk through what it's like to have tough conversations, that sort of thing. And really, giving your preceptors professional development opportunities that are like targeted for them, because they're really giving a huge gift. I mean, we all remember our preceptor, our first preceptor. I remember mine at Children's Hospital. I remember her to this day. The preceptors make a huge difference, and we definitely don't lift them up enough and thank them enough. We need to do more, I'm sure.
Got it. Okay. So when it comes to hiring experienced nurses, and you're operating in a very competitive market for those nurses, you've revamped your careers page. You've identified, just using data and surveying, that they're joining because of your mission, because of the and the magnet designation. You're investing in professional development programs that helps attract nurses too. For example, just even the training for the preceptors. And anything else that you want to just highlight in terms of just like experienced nurse hires before we move on to?
So just one other thing, we do experienced nurse transition programs here. Okay. So where nurses can move from, say, med-surg to our specialty areas. So that is a really big deal for especially it seems to attract mid-career nurses. So you can become an OR nurse here, or labor and delivery nurse, NICU nurse, and that I think is something that a lot of places don't offer. So
and just to double click on that tactic, which is a great one. Essentially, you're offering cross-training programs. Which is wonderful. Is it only offered to those that are already at BMC, or do you allow external hires to participate to join a different unit?
That is a great question. We do it with new grads, right? Which is kind of ironic, right? And then we do it with internal experienced people. We haven't opened it up to external nurses because we've had enough internal nurses interested. But we have talked about the fact that if we had, let's say, 5 spots for a NICU nurses, and we only had 3 internal candidates, we would consider external experienced nurses for those last 2 spots, but we've had enough internal, and I feel like very committed to my own nurses. So.
Okay, awesome. I will mention one other tactic that you're doing and that's the balancing between the associate's degree and bachelor's degrees. I'm guessing you're doing that with these experienced nurses as well? Experienced nurse hiring too? Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yes, definitely.
All right, so let's talk about this big topic of retention. All right, so what is the turnover rate currently, even if it's among experienced nurses?
So it varies. The turnover rate, 70% of our turnovers are in 0 to 5 year nurses.
Yep.
Overall, our turnover rate is like between 12 and 15%. And it depends, like some hospitals count when a person goes from a full-time to a per diem. Some people count that as like the person left, and some people count it that the person's still here. We count them like they left, because although some of them work a lot, it's just easy. This is like, you have to do it one way or the other. So I think that's like fairly standard. So I'm not winning the retention game yet, but I want to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, you're doing better than the national average, that's for sure. But I know that you have a desire to keep improving it.
Yeah.
Great. So can you just give us an overview of just your nurse retention strategy and approach?
Yeah. I think one of the things is just being very intentional. The nurses in my R&R committee came up with like sort of some key themes. And interestingly, because we lose people, a fair number of people at the very beginning of their careers here, that group decided that we really need to focus on onboarding. So, precepting and education is one thing, but like belonging and onboarding and really thinking about how people have like mentors and a way to feel really comfortable in their new area. We have a couple floors that are really good at it, and now we're working on replicating they have a welcome basket, they have swag, they have welcome Nancy, new nurse. I mean, it's like, there's some things that you can do that just make the person just feel really different. So welcoming and onboarding, making sure that they really get through the educational part. Broadly for retention, I think we are trying to offer more flexibility. We have weekend programs. We're trying to work on people not rotating as much to the weekend. We hire full-time night nurses so that our rotators don't rotate very much at all. We're trying to provide, opportunities for people, a lot of internal CEU programs. And actually, this is like one of those things where we had a lot of CEU programs, but we didn't have a really organized way where people could look at a calendar, sign up right there, you know what I mean, have it pop on their own calendar or give them an email. So providing CEUs and then an easy way for staff to access them. In my like sort of nursing goals for the year, I have 5 or 6 things about thriving people and culture, and really creating a dynamic plan for nurse wellness is something we have to do and invest in. We've done a lot of little things, but I feel like we need to pull them together. We're going to move that integrative nursing council, who's fabulous, into a broader, where they're looking more broadly at nursing wellness. Then they can help us in the leadership team really try to focus on the right things. We're really working on workplace safety. I mentioned that earlier. I have a lot of goals around decreasing workplace violence, assaults, and that is like a very foundational piece of work that all of us need to focus on in healthcare. We're working on establishing and implementing a behavioral response team. So one of the things that's really important for the 0 to 5 nurses is that they have support when they need it. We have a really good and proactive critical care resource nurse team. So if the nurse is overwhelmed by the patient they've got in front of them, they can like have a really expert nurse right at their side. We don't really have the same thing when patients start to escalate with their behaviors. And so we really want to create that here at BMC. So, and then, continuing to really think about where are nurses looking for professional opportunities, and how do we, we send more people to professional conferences, make sure that my R&R nurses in the council are actually going to professional conferences, specifically to go to the conference and then to represent the hospital with the TA team, the talent acquisition team, and trying to, be sort of visible in those. So I think the more you ask your nurses what they care about, and the more you need to do interviews, like exit interviews, so that you can get good data on what people are looking for, and make sure that you're not missing something simple that you could work through and would help your retention. But I feel so that's like what I'm doing in next year. But I have to say, since I have a big audience, we need to completely retool and innovate in nursing. We have to provide a career for people that is very, very satisfying. And we aren't right now. We are missing the mark for a lot of people. And one of the things that I did this year is I added a new ACNO for innovation.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of that because I feel like we're going to be able to work with staff to make their jobs better, easier, more satisfying. You know, there are so many frustrations for the staff. It's like unbelievable. And partly because other departments are understaffed, everything comes to the nurse now, like
Right.
everything. Like, oh, the food isn't hot because there's only one person to deliver it. So the nurse is like microwaving like 22 dinners. So, and I'm sure other people will have the same experience. You have to acknowledge that. We've got to figure out ways, even if it's like a little aspirational, a little out there, it's got to look different. It's never going back.
No, it's not. Mariella says, thank you for saying that, Nancy. Denise, agree. This is key. So yeah, you're getting a lot of comments on that. So
and you know what I will
yeah.
say too is, as a chief nursing officer, and I know that all the leaders on the call feel the same way. This is our moment. This is our moment because it is costing the organizations way too much money to muddle through this. And this is our time to really be concrete about what the value proposition is and invest. You need more educators, you need a longer orientation, you need night shift, whatever's like, this is the time, put it in front of people. And because it's going to cost money for us to do what we need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, the partnership between the nursing leaders and the finance leaders is critical too, because there are some ways to implement some of these that are budget neutral too.
True. That's absolutely true. And you know what? I think earning the respect of the finance team by being able to be nuanced on things that you can decrease, so that when you ask for things that you have to increase, there's a trust there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Making their jobs easier too. So just to summarize, when it comes to the retention, you're focusing in on definitely improving the onboarding of experienced nurses. Sounds like you're also investing more in training, more training programs, more career advancement programs. Curious, you hadn't talked too much about flexibility and schedules, which was a second common reason why nurses are kind of changing jobs sometimes. What's your philosophy just on flexible scheduling? It's very difficult. You know, we know that internally it is operationally complex to manage so many different types of schedules, which is why historically as an industry, we really just stayed on, we've kept it kind of narrow. The options are narrower, but just wondering about your philosophy.
Well, I think it's funny. I think that this is what distinguishes nursing from every other career, right? Is that patients are sick at night and on the weekends and on holidays. And that is just such a bummer. We haven't really, I don't think, reacted to the in a compensation kind of way, the compensation that you need to in order to like make up for that, right? Because that's really where that person's pulled away from their regular life. So, this is a place where we really have to think more about it. We meet with new nurses who say, I'm willing to do weekends for now, but I don't want to do them. And there's options for people out there to work in clinics or to work Monday through Friday. And we don't have that much of it in the hospital. So I think this is like a place where we're really going to have to innovate, because the organizational demands and what the employees are wanting and hoping for in terms of flexibility right now, they're a little bit far apart.
Yeah.
And, but I do think this is a place where, I've thought about one of the reasons that people travel. So, when traveling first started, it sort of had that huge uptake during that second year of COVID or the end of the first year. I think everybody assumed it was all about money, and there was like plenty of money. And that was that's a good reason right there. But when I read this New York Times article, they had interviewed a bunch of nursing travelers. And one of the travelers said, the biggest reason I'm attracted to traveling is because I can create a 13-week experience. It doesn't matter how annoyed I was during the 13 weeks or how difficult the politics were. At the end of 13 weeks, I can do something that I couldn't do in my old job, and that is walk away.
Yeah.
And people who are traveling also create a schedule. They'll work like whatever it is, 13 weeks and take 4 off. Work 3 weeks and take 2 off. It's not something we can offer right now in the hospital in any like reasonable way. We've got to be able to do it though. And so we're going to have to really think about like, how do you create, I know some systems have created like internal travel pools, and we're not a system like that, but
Yeah.
I think flexibility, we do have weekend positions. I think I mentioned that before. We try to hire, we definitely have 24, we try to do flexibility, and we're really committed to scheduling. We do self-scheduling here and staff.
Yep.
I think, and I should say, I don't have the answers to any of these things to the degree that I know we're all going to need them. We are struggling at BMC for sure. And I think if I had my little recruitment and retention council nurses, they're like so jazzed and so positive and so hopeful, but we have a lot to figure out. And flexibility, I think, is going to be one of those really difficult things.
Yeah, absolutely. What we're seeing is CNOs and HR leaders increasingly just presenting a menu of options to nurses, right? Part-time, full-time, weekend shifts. You mentioned self-scheduling as well. It's just we have to meet them where they're at, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned just like around what you're doing to make nurses that are joining your organization be successful at your workplace so they don't leave. You mentioned the resource nurses that they have available. Just curious, like any other like sort of tactics you've got in place to support nurses as they're joining your organization and encouraging them to stay?
I think the biggest one is the generalist model.
Yep.
So in addition to the educator that's really doing the orientation and really checking in with the preceptors, and the generalist does two things, right? It's a support for these new people, but it's also an opportunity for career advancement for an expert nurse, because they don't have an assignment. They're there to support the new people. And so I think that's like a big one. I'm hoping that the behavioral response team will be another way that the nurses really feel like we're supporting them. We have an IV team. We have skin specialists. We have infectious disease nurses, and we did actually fellowship for ID nurses. I had several, 2 to 3 that were going to retire. And that's another position that's hard to hire for. And so we created a 1-year fellowship. At the end of that, the nurses were certified. We specifically put in the advertisement that we were looking for BIPOC nurses, so nurses of color. And we wanted to be that intentional about creating leadership roles for phenomenal nurses that we have across the organization. We hired 3 of those nurses. They are finished now with their year, and they're working as infectious disease nurses here. So I think anywhere that you can let people see a glimmer of possibility for them in professional development is just, it means a lot, because otherwise it's a very, it's a grind.
Yep, absolutely. So I would be remiss to not mention this topic, but like we'd love to hear what your compensation philosophy is. It's such a controversial topic in nursing, but so we'd love to hear your perspective.
Well, I mean, we have a compensation strategy at BMC in the aggregate, and that is, to look at the market and pay at the median.
Yep.
But man, the market is like, right? Yeah. So especially, I don't know if about especially, but in Boston for sure, it's moving like all over the place. So we are really trying to make sure that that is not a place where people have a reason not to come here. I think, and that is like, and this is across all the roles at BMC. We are, and in the non-RN roles, actually, people have all kinds of other opportunities. Like you can be a mail carrier, you can work at Target, you can be a like an EVS person, a housekeeping person in a building that's easy, as opposed to in a hospital, which is hard. So I think we have to look more broadly at the market than we used to. And even for nurses too, because nurses have a lot of opportunities outside of the hospital setting. So we are a bargain for hospital. So yes, we have a union environment. So we have, and we've done a lot of work with our union colleagues to figure out, like, we have a bonus program right now for nurses who work extra shifts. We've, been evolving that over time to make sure that it's really meaningful to the staff that's picking up shifts for us. So there's a lot of things we've done sort of outside the typical contract. But I think you have to, I know it's like number 4 on your list, but it is sort of a foundational one.
It
In
is,
terms
yeah.
of both
It's table
recruitment
stakes,
and
yeah.
retention. Yeah,
Uh,
it's not like people, I don't think people will leave a job they're happy with for like $1 an hour, but you do have to be, like multi-pronged on this. Compensation is one of them, but you have to, we all have to work on all those different pieces.
All right. And then one more question I had is, like, I know you're a big believer in data, right? And driving your decisions and practices using data. Why is that so important? And, like, what kind of data are you looking at and where are you getting it from?
It's a combination for data of finance data and HR data. And I think the reason that we need it is because you don't know where to invest if you don't know who's coming and who's leaving.
Yeah.
And right. And so we keep track of by area, the number of people who leave every month, the number of people we make offers to, and the number of people who accept every month, the number of people who start every month, and then sort of like a calendar out of and of the starting people, experienced nurses and the new grad cohorts. So that's like one piece. It's interesting with my group, the Organization of Nurse Leaders, we're trying to figure out how to really create a robust data sharing opportunity for chief nursing officers, so we can all kind of understand the market more broadly. But at least at BMC, we're looking every single week, actually, at who's coming, who's going, what is it, where are we finding, what comments are we getting anecdotally and from exit interviews, and feedback on what is working for the nurses and what is not working, because we're just trying to keep evolving it's like the word of the COO here, the value proposition, like why here, why stay, why come.
Okay, we're going to just do a quick overview of what it is Incredible Health is, and then Nancy will wrap up with your top tips for the audience.
Oh, geez.
as well as
me top tips too. Come on.
and then we'll open it up for more Q&A as well. And then we'll wrap on time. So Incredible Health, it's a career marketplace for healthcare workers. We're a technology company. We're a software company. Hospitals and health systems, they use our custom matching technology to hire high quality permanent nurses in less than 20 days. We're used by over 600 hospitals and health systems across the country. Very large health systems like HCA and Tenet use us, and Kaiser Permanente. We work with many academic medical centers as well, like Johns Hopkins and Yale and Stanford and Cedars-Sinai, and lots of community hospitals too. We are used by Boston Medical Center and have a big presence in the Massachusetts market as well. So as far as how it works and what we do, there's 3 or 4 unique things about Incredible Health. First, the employers apply to the talent instead of the other way around. As you can imagine, the nurses absolutely love that. They create a profile, they sit back and relax, they hear from different employers, they get to choose which interviews to accept or decline. We've also automated the screening of the talent and the matching as well, using algorithms and using humans as well. So it's important for, let's say, the BMC team, talent acquisition team is using the platform and they log in. Like, they don't really want to see 276 nurses. They need to see, the 14, 15 nurses that are the right fit for BMC at that time. And then we also provide a robust set of data analytics. We're also big believers in data, Nancy, just like you. And so we're able to identify bottlenecks in the hiring process. We can share that with a team like BMC, and as well as share their competition anonymously with them too, in terms of how they're doing in terms of hiring, and and that helps us really identify areas of success as well as opportunity areas that we can address together too. So we have about 12% of US nurses using Incredible Health, and that grows. So 12,000 nurses are joining our platform every single week, and they join for a variety of reasons. So one reason is to use the hiring marketplace to find their next permanent job, but we also offer a whole range of free tools and services to nurses all over the country. We offer free continuing education, which is available in our apps, both our iOS and our Android app, which is accredited in all 50 states. They use our salary estimators. They have access to talent advocates or career coaches here. We also have a community for nurses built into our apps, like a Quora for nurses, where they can ask each other pretty detailed questions and get very highly nuanced and high quality answers too. I did want to just share with the group that, operational excellence in hiring is critical. Nancy mentioned several of the tactics that her team has implemented. But what we find in every single market that we work in, including the Boston market, is that it is the hospital and health system that hires the fastest, that ends up hiring the most. Not necessarily the hospital or health system that has the highest compensation, or the hospital or health system with the biggest brand in that market. We see this in every local market where we operate, in LA and Boston and Miami, everywhere. So 68% of nurses accept the very first offer they receive. So being first to offer does matter. And then 61% of nurses accept their very first offer, even if the second or third one has more compensation. So operational excellence in hiring is critical. This is just a quick case study from a team in California. For this team, we have the different steps of the hiring process. We were able to reduce the days to fill from 66 days down to 19 days. Where we had the biggest impact is on time to source. So actually just finding that, getting the nurses interested in the health system in the first place. And then we do shave off a couple days later in the process too, with things like automated interview scheduling and things like that. But really, we're trying to really reduce the days to fill in order to offset the travel nurse costs. So hospitals and health systems don't have to have as many travel nurses because they're able to hire permanent nurses faster. We also track retention. Our retention rates, when nurses are hired from the Incredible Health platform for permanent roles, the retention rate is about 15% higher than the baseline. The reason for that, we believe, is because the nurse was able to consider multiple opportunities, and it was a very well-informed job search when they select, BMC for very specific reasons, because they already considered the non-BMC options. And so the commitment level is higher. This is a true partnership. We work with the in-house talent acquisition team. So we take on Incredible Health takes on the heavy lifting for the first 4 steps, finding the nurses, making sure they're pre-qualified, making sure they're interested, and getting that first phone screen scheduled with the BMC team. The BMC team, talent acquisition team, takes over at that point. They're completing the phone screens. Hiring manager interviews are getting completed, offers are getting sent, and offers are getting accepted. We talk a lot about nurses needing to operate at the top of their license or skill set. We also need our recruiters to operate at the top of their skill set too. And they should be engaging with candidates and building relationships with hiring managers and spending less time on administrative work like sourcing, for example, which can be automated with technology like Incredible Health. All right, so Nancy, I'll turn over to you for a moment. What's your top advice for your peers on the webinar today, just in terms of, it could be nurse hiring, nurse retention? What would you say are your top tips?
So one of them is, I just want to pick up on your operational excellence in hiring. I think every single HR department across the country is completely overwhelmed right now. They have so many openings in so many departments, and their compensation, people are trying to figure it all out. And I agree with you that working with the nursing leaders and making sure that they are focused and get back to people and make offers and things like, can you extend an offer with the pending references instead of the way you've always done it for a million years, really re-looking at and questioning, do they have to pass that telemetry test before y'all hire them? Really, do they have to have BLS? Because that takes 5 hours to teach, they don't. So just regrouping and trying to make your HR path as smooth as possible, I think actually is something we all need to make sure we do. And then I guess my 2 other, sort of high points. One is, whether you're a magnet hospital or thinking about being a magnet hospital or even on the path at all, the tenets of making sure that you really invest in your leadership team and your leaders are very supportive of nursing and nurses, because it's such a people business. We need to care for them so they can care for the patients. And so that, I guess that I would say that the playbook for Magnet, I really just highly recommend it for people to really think about how that it will drive your nursing leadership theory and philosophy and everything. And then as much as you can get involved with professional organizations in your area. For us at or the Organization of Nurse Leaders for New England, so it's OOONL.org. Yep. We have a white paper on there about nursing retention that was just a compendium of everybody's ideas and put it all together. It's available, even though it says membership sign in, you don't have to, you can just click and get that. And also AONL has information about retention of nurse leaders specifically. So, and you need to really invest in your nurse leaders too. They're the people really holding a lot of it together. And I think that's a place that you need to make sure that you're equally as focused on as you are with the staff. So
Yep, absolutely.
that's it for me.
And if anyone's interested in finding out more about Incredible Health, Danny on our team has sent in the chat like just the link to sign up for time with us. So please, we're happy to chat with anyone on the call. All right, let's take some audience Q&A. There's a lot of questions about the generalist role. I think you piqued some interest there. So,
Great.
So can you tell us more about this generalist role? Like, what do they have a master's degree? Is it like are they coming from some clinical ladder program? Like, that's a question from Sherry.
Yep. So we decided to add the generalists. They report into the education department.
Yeah.
They do not have to have a master's degree. They are bachelor's prepared nurses. We hired only really expert nurses. We have them in the critical care area, in the maternity area, and in med-surg, focused, they're assigned 7P to 7A, and they do not have a patient assignment. They know the list of the people who are newly off orientation. And that's the focus, is those people. We're trying to work on sort of best practices, but most of them will go up to the nurse that, say, hey, Mike, I'm Nancy. They probably already know them, but I'm the generalist. Or how are you nervous about any of your patients? Do you have any questions about them? They show them how to look up policies. They do things with them. And they literally are proactive through the shift, just walking through the different units and checking on the people who are new. We posted them in regular positions, and our nurses applied for them, and it's a role. It's not time limited.
Yep.
It's a real job. Okay.
Question from Robert Griffith. Have any thoughts on hybrid or remote nursing helping retention? Is that it's sort of approach you're considering, or not really?
Yeah, so that's interesting. We are actually in a building project here. We're building new units, 70 new beds. And as part of that, we're trying to think about what the future would hold in terms of wiring, right? And so the remote nurse idea, we're preparing for that, because I think two things from that question, and he's probably thinking of both of them. One is it's a cool job for somebody to be able to be that remote nurse. And the other one is it's a nice support. The way I've seen them work is that remote nurse can be the double check for insulin if you do that, and do the cognitive parts of maybe the nursing assessment, can do the discharge teaching, and takes things off of the nurse. And again, it's anything that you think will help the nurse stick with what she is fed by, anything that you can pull away that helps them spend time doing the things that are meaningful to them are all going to be great ideas going forward. We do not have remote nursing here at BMC though.
Okay, got it. There were a lot of questions submitted. It was a very, very active chat as always. So for those of you where we weren't able to address your question, you are more than welcome to send it to us at questions@incrediblehealth.com, and either the Incredible Health team or we'll help Nancy answer them as well. So please do feel free to email us at questions@incrediblehealth.com, which we have up on the screen. And just as a reminder to everybody, this session was recorded, and our member of our team will be in touch and to share the recording with you as well. Nancy, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your insights, your advice, your tactics. These are very tough topics. It is a challenging time in healthcare, but like you said, it's a very hopeful time too, because there's a lot of attention on nursing now and on CNOs, and so now's the time to really, make some moves, make some changes, and sort of make the profession even stronger.
Yep, I agree. And thank you so much for hosting and for being so innovative in this space with all of us. It's great to have Incredible Health as a partner, and I think we can learn from a lot of the work that you guys are doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nancy. Appreciate your time. Thanks everybody for joining.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.